Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are continuing in the problem of life. It's a few pages in.
227.
227.
Yeah,
And we begin with the sentence, the third difficulty.
that's right.
Good.
Just for you to recap what we have done, the first difficulty is man does not know himself. The second difficulty, man does not know the universe. Now let's read what about him, what is in the third difficulty. The third difficulty is the division between force and consciousness in the evolutionary existence. There is first the division which has been created by the evolution itself in its three successive formations of matter, life, and mind, each with its own law of working. The life is at work with the body, is at war with the body. It attempts to force it to satisfy life's desires, impulses, satisfactions, and demands from its limited capacity what could only be possible to an immortal and divine body. And the body, enslaved and tyrannized over, suffers and in constant dumb revolt against the demands made upon it by the life. The mind is at war with both. Sometimes it helps the life against the body, sometimes restrains the vital urge and seeks to protect the corporeal frame from life's desires, passions, and overdriving energies. It also seeks to possess the life and turn its energy to the mind's own ends, to the utmost joys of the mind's own activity, to the satisfaction of mental, aesthetic, emotional aims and their fulfillment in human existence. And the life too finds itself enslaved and misused and is in frequent insurrection against the ignorant, half-wise tyrant seated above it. This is the war of our members which the mind cannot satisfactorily resolve because it has to deal with a problem insoluble to it. The aspiration of an immortal being in a mortal life and body. It can only arrive at a long succession of compromises or end in an abandonment of the problem, either by submission with the materialist to the mortality of our apparent being, or with the ascetic and the religionist by the rejection and condemnation of the earthly life and withdrawal to happier and easier fields of existence. But the solution
But the true solution.
But the true solution lies in finding the principle beyond mind, of which immortality is a law, and in conquering by it the mortality of our existence. So this is the third difficulty. First difficulty, man does not know himself. He doesn't know all the parts of himself. Second difficulty, he does not know the universe. Third difficulty is intrinsic in his own being and also which is there in the universe. Consciousness and force divide themselves. And when the division takes place, one becoming the many, in our life, mind, life and matter, body, which are supposed to be essentially the same thing, become different, apparently different. And there is a quarrel between all of them. So, and the quarrel is a very interesting one.
Very interesting.
We'll see examples to ourselves of what are the quarrels, okay? We'll see. It's very interesting to see that. We don't think of it as a quarrel, but actually it's a disharmony between the two. So, the third difficulty is the division between force and consciousness, Chit and Shakti. In the evolutionary existence, these are the impersonal, universal level, not at the individual level. Okay. It starts from there itself. There is first the division which has been created by the evolution itself in its three successive formations of matter, life, and mind. Now, why have I? Yes. then matter, life and mind, each with its own law of working. So, own law of working. And that's also a very interesting thing, how the laws also slowly change at each level. The same law takes a different form. That we'll discuss later on. Each with its own law of working. The life is at war with the body. The vital makes all sorts of demands on the body. It wants to eat more, but the body can't tolerate. You end up with an indigestion. So that's one example. Or the athlete, he pushes himself too much because he wants the first place or second place, and the body suffers as a result. Next day he's down or he breaks his leg. So that's another example of war between vital and the body. There's so many other examples like that. Okay. So, the life is at war with the body. It attempts to force it to satisfy life's desires, impulses, satisfactions, and demands from its limited capacity what could only be possible to an immortal and divine body. The demands of the vital are infinite. It never
So
satisfies.
he's using life here
In the
as
sense of vital.
synonymous with the vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, life he uses as a synonym for vital. You can also use the word prana, it's the same.
Mhm.
So, demands from, yeah. And the body enslaved and tyrannized over. It's really a tyrannizing. The vital tyrannizes the body. Okay, so.
But it's true, isn't it? It's very true.
Yeah, absolutely. When you insist on something you don't want to do, you're tyrannizing the body. Suffers and is in constant dumb revolt against the demands made upon it by the life. Its dumb result when it falls ill or it can't do, or if you are an athlete and you make supreme effort and the body collapses and becomes unconscious. This is the dumb result, dumb revolt, okay, against the demands made upon it by the life. The mind is at war with both. Now that's something, okay. Sometimes it helps the life against the body. When the mind starts supporting the desires in the vital and says, yes, we should do this, okay, then the body suffers again.
The vitalized mind.
Yes, that's right, okay. So, the mind is at war with both. Sometimes it helps the life against the body. Sometimes restrains the vital urge and seeks to protect the corporeal frame.
The buddhi.
Yeah.
That becomes
The mind says, you're too greedy, don't eat so much now, make it less. Okay? It's time to protect the body. Life's desires and passions are overdriving energies. It also seeks to possess the life and turn its energy to the mind's own ends, to the utmost joys of the mind's own activity, to the satisfaction of mental, aesthetic, emotional aims and their fulfillment in human existence. And the life too finds itself enslaved and misused and is in frequent insurrection against the ignorant, half-wise tyrant seated above. The mind is a half-wise tyrant. And it goes into revolt, insurrection, revolt.
but here he says to the mind's own end. I understand the satisfaction of mental, aesthetic, but here he also uses the word emotional.
Yes.
So within the purview of mind, you're talking about the heart, the higher vital also
Yes,
in
there
the
is-
purview of the mind.
Yes. That's right. After all, there isn't a clear-cut division between the two. In our own case, sometimes when we have feelings, we can't really make out whether it's a vital thing or a mental thing.
Very true.
There is a difference. Is it a thought or is it a pure emotion? There's a mixture.
Or is it a mixture?
Yes. That's right. So, against the half-wise tyrant seated above it. This is the war of our members, which the mind cannot satisfactorily resolve because it has to deal with a problem insoluble to it. The aspiration of an immortal being in a mortal life and body. This, what he is mentioning here, a problem insoluble to it, is very interesting because the mind has many questions which it can't solve at its own level. So many problems are there which you can't solve. So, at every level, there is a limit to the capacities. The worm can't do what the dog can do. There is a limitation of its consciousness. The dog can't do what a man can do. And man can't do what a yogi can do. It's obviously so. There's a gradation. So this what he's saying, a problem insoluble to it. This sometimes the materialist men don't understand. That there are questions which you can't solve at our level. For instance, the divine is one and the many. For a materialist, this makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
But it can be solved at a higher level. You're trying to solve it with the mind, you can't. Okay, so this is it.
I remember once Louis Allen showed me a letter from Mother about collaboration and how she said that when A and B cannot get together,
Yeah,
one has to find a C above.
that's right.
Yeah,
You have to go above to find the solution to it.
right.
Yeah. So, these are one of our members which the mind cannot satisfactorily resolve because it has to deal with the problem insoluble to it. The aspiration of an immortal being in a mortal life and body. It can only arrive at a long succession of compromises or end in an abandonment of the problem, either by submission with the materialist to the mortality of our apparent being, or with the ascetic and the religionist by the rejection and condemnation of the earthly life and withdrawal to happier and easier fields of existence. So, either by submission with the materialist to the mortality of our apparent being, you can say that this is the problem of existentialism. Okay?
Mhm.
Acceptance, weak acceptance of the difficulties in the physical world. You can't do anything about it. There is no solution. They feel that there is no solution. So they accept weakly. What can you do? This is the nature of the world. Tolerate it. You can't do anything about it. So weak submission with the materialist, he is saying. Then, or with the materialist, or the other one.
With the ascetic.
What's that? Maybe, okay, I think I know what it is. My phone.
I think so.
Yeah, I know what it is. Okay, then, or he's saying, with the apparent being, or with the ascetic and the religionist. The ascetic is rejecting the earthly life, and the,
Religion.
yeah, and religion,
And
by
the
rejection and condemnation of the earthly life, and withdrawal to happier and easier fields of existence, you go to the,
Heaven.
yeah, you go to heaven. That's right. So the problem can't be solved here. Get rid of the problem. Sri Aurobindo uses the word, the ascetic uses moral surgery. He uses the word moral surgery. Cut off the modified life and go to the higher one.
But that beautiful, beautiful line of
Yeah.
the immortal body
Yeah,
in a mortal life.
Yeah.
An immortal being.
yeah,
An
immortal
immortal
being.
life and
Yeah.
body.
The mind it is capable of thinking of the immortal, and idealism can go very far, but it can never solve the problem. In fact, in Synthesis, he mentions this. He says that the mind wants absolute ideals. Okay? It wants absolute truth. But it can never get it in the physical world. It always gets distorted. It wants absolute justice. Never get it here. You want absolute love. Can't get it here. And then he says something extraordinarily interesting. He says that nature won't allow it.
Oh.
He says, in Synthesis, he says, nature won't allow you to have absolute truth and absolute love and absolute justice. Why? Because your mental standards will not be the right one. Mental standards will be, so it will not allow you to go to the real thing because of the limitation in the mind. It's interesting. The problem can be solved only when you go above the mind. When I read that in the Synthesis, I was quite struck.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that's what he said.
So, the human mind is not an adhikari of that level
Exactly.
of justice and
That's
love
right.
and
Yeah.
truth.
It does not have the intrinsic right to solve the problem because of its limitation. It's like a bad judge. He won't make the right decision. So, but the true solution lies in finding the principle beyond mind, of which immortality is the law, and in conquering by it the mortality of our existence. Because when you make your mind silent and go to the self, you realize that your soul is immortal. Then the problem is solved. The problem remains at the lower level, but your own problem, individual problem, is solved.
So here when he talks about mind, he's talking about the individual mind.
Yes.
He's not talking about
No, but remember one
the
thing.
entire spiritual ladder, which is all a purview of the lower Prakriti.
Yeah, but I'll point out one thing, Saritaji. When your individual mind goes up, it is becoming the cosmic consciousness.
True, but
Yeah.
it is still the mind.
Yes.
It is not.
The individual mind. The individual mind, it becomes universal.
So it is the higher mind, but not the highest.
That's right, it is the higher mind. So that completes the paragraph. We go to the next one.
Mhm.
But there is also that fundamental division between force of nature and the conscious being, which is the original cause of this incapacity. Now he is going to the universal. He has been talking of the individual problem. Now he is going to the universal. There is also the fundamental division between force of nature, Narad and Cap.
Mhm.
Okay?
Got it.
The universal nature, and the conscious being, which is the original cause of this incapacity. Not only is there a division between the mental, the vital, and the physical being, but each of them is also divided within itself. Now that's very
You
interesting.
have within?
Within it, against
I
itself.
have against, yeah.
It's against, sorry. But you will see that he is talking about mind. Within the mind also there are divisions. He will say that. So against itself. Now he is explaining. The capacity of the body is less than the capacity of the instinctive soul or conscious being, the physical Purusha within it. We'll go step by step. The physical Purusha is the subtle physical. He says that there is the Purusha is the consciousness in the intraconscient, just behind the physical body, there is a physical Purusha, the physical soul. He calls it sometimes the physical soul. Then at the vital level, in the intraconscient, behind that, there is a true vital. He calls it the true vital or the inner vital or also the vital Purusha or the vital soul. Huh?
Pranamaya Purush.
Yeah.
Pranamaya Purush.
Yeah, that's right. Then Prana Purusha, that's right. Then finally behind the mind also, in the intraconscient, there is the inner mind. He calls it sometimes the inner mind, he calls it sometimes the true mind, and he also calls it soul in mind. So the soul is actually, the soul is infinite and divine. So there is a mental soul, there is a vital soul, and there is a physical soul.
Can you tell us the difference in the intraconscient and the subtle plane, subtle physical?
The subtle physical is part of the intraconscient.
Ah, okay.
The subtle physical is part of the intraconscient because body, mind and body, life and mind, when you go in, you are going into the subtler planes. When you are dreaming, you are going into the intraconscient.
The chapter in Savitri, the journey into the inner countries.
That's
That
right.
is exactly this.
Yeah, the inner country. Because, Narad, when you are dreaming, you are seeing and you are hearing,
Oh, yes.
but are you using your eyes?
No.
So that's the subtle side that you are using.
Yeah.
The subtle side and subtle hearing.
Yes.
So there are subtle senses. When you go into an intraconscient and when you go above, so there are subtle senses. But beyond a certain, you don't need senses at all. You use different instruments of knowledge. So there is also that fundamental division within he's using the word within, between force of nature and the conscious being, which is the original cause of this incapacity. Not only is there a division between the mental, vital and physical being, but each of them is also divided against itself. The capacity of the body is less than the capacity of the instinctive soul or conscious being, the physical Purusha within it. The capacity of the vital force less than the capacity of the impulsive soul and the vital conscious being or Purusha within it. The capacity of the mental energy less than the capacity of the intellectual and emotional soul, the mental Purusha within it. For the soul is the inner consciousness which aspires to its own complete self-realization and therefore always exceeds the individual formation of the moment. The individual formation of the moment is the outer nature, body, mind, life. And the force which has taken its poise in the formation is always pushed by its soul to that which is abnormal to the poise, transcendent of it. Thus, constantly pushed, it has much trouble in answering. There is constantly a guidance from inner being, but the outer nature cannot always respond to it in the right way. It does not even understand that it is being pushed. The aspiration of man is one such. The aspiration is going on coming from within. But you can't always respond to it in the right way. I'll read that sentence again, it's very interesting. For the soul is the inner consciousness which aspires to its own complete self-realization and therefore always exceeds the individual formation of the moment. And the force which has taken its poise in the formation is always pushed by its soul to that which is abnormal to the poise. Poise means the physical. Transcendent of it, thus constantly pushed, it has much trouble in answering, more in evolving from the present to a greater capacity. In trying to fulfill the demands of this triple soul, it is distracted and driven to set instinct against instinct, impulse against impulse, emotion against emotion, idea against idea, satisfying this, denying that, then repenting and returning on what it has done, adjusting, compensating, readjusting ad infinitum, but not arriving at any principle of unity. In the mind again, the conscious power that should harmonize and unite is not only limited in its knowledge and its will, but the knowledge and the will are disparate and often at discord. The principle of unity is above in the supermind, for there alone is the conscious unity of all diversities. There alone, will and knowledge are equal and in perfect harmony. There alone, consciousness and force arrive at their divine equation. So, the one becoming the many, and the many are always at war with each other. That's what he's saying.
The map he makes is so beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. He has mapped out the whole thing.
Yes.
It's a geographical mapping of the entire thing. You have the body, mind, life, which is the outer being. You have the inner being. You have the inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, 10 times more powerful than the outer. So if you can get to that vital, for instance, in going inwards, you call the inner countries when you go, if you hit your inner vital, tremendous amount of energy can come in. Sri Aurobindo calls that, there was a case like that here in the ashram. His name was Tirupati. It's there in the correspondence. The name is not there. So he could contact his vital, and he had tremendous. He didn't need to sleep. He didn't need to eat. He told Sri Aurobindo, I have so much energy. I don't need to eat and I don't need to sleep. Sri Aurobindo warned him and told him, don't do that. That's what you call the this inner is called the intermediate zone, and that can be the vital is very it can fool you and deceive you. So when you enter it particularly into the vital region, very dangerous. So this man didn't listen, and Sri Aurobindo told him repeatedly, please sleep normal and eat normally. Don't do that. What is the use? I don't need to. Finally he lost his mind and he had to be sent away. So this is there are 2-3 words he uses. The valley of the false glimmer. That's one word he uses.
Yes.
And the other one is he uses the intermediate zone. Very dangerous. So to obviate the difficulties of the intermediate zone, if the psychic is in front, no problem. It can immediately know that this is something I have to be careful about. But if that is not there, you will get lost.
So this intermediate zone is in the cosmic consciousness.
No, in the intraconscious.
But to reach the psychic, you have to pass through this, no?
That's a danger.
No, but you're saying if the psychic is in front, now to reach the psychic,
Yeah.
you have to pass through it, so it's like the chicken or the egg, no?
It's not an obstruction in that sense. The psychic can come forward even when you are imperfect. It can come forward. And there was another case. There was a gentleman here, he was a Bengali man, and he also had gone into the vital, and he was having all sorts of experiences. And he told mother, I'm having all these experiences. Mother immediately stopped the experiences. And he used to complain to us. He said, Mother has stopped all my spiritual progress. He doesn't know that Mother has done him a great favor.
Yeah.
He didn't know that. So these are the dangers of the vital.
So this man that came to me the other day, he doesn't sleep anymore. He walks 20 hours a day. He had the descent of the light all through his body, and he is unable to sleep.
He is unable or unwilling or
Unable.
unable.
And he eats normally. There's no pains in his body, nothing wrong with him at all. And he has to walk 20 hours a day. And his wife is acknowledging everything he said. Amazing. I asked him for an interview. He said, we're only at the beginning of this path.
There are all sorts of possible combinations and permutations, so you can't say exactly what it is.
Exactly.
But if he's unable to, then he can't help it. He must be making an effort and not
Yeah.
able to, but then that will sort itself out. But unwilling means you're actually being cruel to your body.
Yes. So God knows what it is.
Well, mother's carrying him. He came to me and he wanted me to resolve his problem. And his problem was that his mind keeps wrestling with, why has this happened to me? I said, put a little gratitude into it. because
He feels the light.
Hmm?
He feels the light descending into him.
What we can't say because we don't have the experience.
Yeah. I would have been interested and I would have asked him, what are the experiences when the light comes in? Can you describe that experience? Then he would have
He did describe it to me a bit. He said that he had no interest in yoga. He was a well-known dentist in New York City, had a wonderful practice, and there was no interest in yoga. And then he started not being able to sleep more than a few hours a day. And then one day this light from the mother comes in, and he knows it's from the mother.
Oh,
That much he knew.
he's in contact with mother and
Must
servant.
have been, yes, must have been. And that was the beginning of their yoga. Extraordinary.
The beginning come in so many ways, no? So, we finish the second para. We go to the third. Man, in proportion as he develops into a self-conscious and truly thinking being, becomes acutely aware of all this discord and disparateness in his parts, and he seeks to arrive at a harmony of his mind, life and body, a harmony of his knowledge and will and emotion, a harmony of all his members. Sometimes this desire stops short at the attainment of a workable compromise which will bring with it a relative peace. But compromise can only be a halt on the way, since the deity within will not be satisfied eventually with less than a perfect harmony, combining in itself the integral development of our many-sided potentialities. Less than this would be an evasion of the problem, not its solution, or else only a temporary solution provided as a resting place for the soul in its continual self-enlargement and ascension. Such a perfect harmony would demand as essential terms a perfect mentality, a perfect play of vital force, a perfect physical existence. But where in the radically imperfect shall we find the principle and power of perfection? So, mind rooted in division and limitation cannot provide it to us, nor can life and the body, which are the energy and the frame of dividing and limiting mind. The principle and power of perfection are there in the subconscious, but wrapped up in the tegument or veil of the lower Maya, a mute premonition emerging as an unrealized ideal. In the superconscient, they await, open, eternally realized, but still separated from us by the veil of our self ignorance. It is above then, and not either in our present poise nor below it, that we must seek for the reconciling power and knowledge. So,
Pretty clear.
last time also he said the same thing. The solution is never below. It's there in seed form. But in seed form you can't get the detail. So you have to go up. This was fairly simple.
Yeah.
So we
quite
go to the
simple.
next para.
Yes, let's.
Equally, man as he develops becomes acutely aware of the discord and ignorance that governs his relations with the world. Acutely intolerant of it, more and more set upon finding a principle of harmony, peace, joy, and unity. This too can only come to him from above. For only by developing a mind which shall have knowledge of the mind of others as of itself, free from our mutual ignorance and misunderstanding, a will that feels and makes itself one with the will of others, an emotional heart that contains the emotions of others as its own, a life force that senses the energies of others and accepts them for its own and seeks to fulfill them as its own, and a body that is not a wall of imprisonment and defense against the world, but all this under the law of a light and truth that shall transcend the aberrations and errors, the much sin and falsehood of our and others' minds, wills, emotions, life energies. So, only so can the life of man, spiritually and practically, become one with that of his fellow beings, and the individual recover his own universal self. The subconscient has this life of the all, and the superconscient has it, but under conditions which necessitate our motion upwards. For not towards the Godhead, concealed in the inconscient ocean where darkness is wrapped within darkness. There is a quotation from the Rig Veda. But towards the Godhead, seated in the sea of eternal light. Again, there is a reference to the Rig Veda. We'll read that later. In the highest ether of our being is the original impetus which has carried upward the evolving soul to the type of our humanity. Note, the previous para was about the harmony within himself. Now he is talking about the harmony in the universe. So what he has said earlier, he is following the same pattern. Yeah. So in any case, the disharmony within himself and the disharmony in the universe can both be solved only when he goes to the higher level.
Can you shine some light on this for me? The subconscient has this life
Yeah,
of the all,
yeah,
and the superconscient has it. And then he goes on to say, which necessitate our motion upwards.
yes.
If the superconscient has it, why does it necessitate our motion upwards?
The superconscient is up and you are here, you have to go up.
You are. It's necessary that you
It's not at our level, so we have to make an effort to go up.
Yeah, okay. I understand, but when he says the subconscient has this life,
Yeah.
but under conditions which necessitate our motion upwards.
Yes,
But the superconscient has it,
yeah.
so
And
they
these,
both necessitate our motion upwards.
yes, I'll tell you, the previous one, he has told you that the superconscient has it, but in the conditions of darkness and,
Ah, okay.
yeah, it is trapped here.
Right.
It's in seed form, but there it is open. So when it is open, it's easier to get it, but here you can't get it because it's in darkness.
And it's also dangerous because if you go down and there's no light, then you are going to be sucked inside.
That's right.
So that's why they say the subconscious has this life of the all, and the superconscious has it, but under conditions that necessitate
Yeah.
the pull up.
Or to put it another way, the inconscient has it in potential,
Mm.
in a compressed form, but you can't access it. So you have to go up. You in the tree, in the seed, you can't get the tree. The tree is up there. So if you go to the seed, you won't get the tree. You have to go up to get the tree. The openness. He said that in the previous, very clearly he has said that. Very interesting. Let's find that place. Here it is. On page 229. Okay? Towards the end.
The
Okay?
principle.
Yeah, he's saying the principle and power of perfection are there in the subconscious, but wrapped up in the tegument or veil of the lower Maya, a mute premonition emerging as an unrealized ideal. It is there in mute form. Very clear.
And then in the
Tegument of
superconscious,
or veil. And in the superconscious they await open, eternally realized. That's why you have to go up. But still separated from us by the veil of our
Yeah.
self-ignorance. So you have to go up to
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
That's what it means. So now he says, unless therefore the race is to fall by the wayside and leave the victory to other and new creations of the eager travailing mother, it must aspire to this ascent, conducted indeed through love, mental illumination, and the vital urge to possession and self-giving, but leading beyond to the supramental unity which transcends and fulfills them. In the founding of human life upon the supramental realization of conscious unity with the One and with all in our being and in all its members, humanity must seek its final good and salvation. And this is what we have already described as the fourth status of life in the ascent towards the Godhead. The fourth status of life. First status of life, matter. Second status of life, life. Third status of life, mind. And in the supermind, everything gets that chart which we gave. That's he's referring to that.
what is this vital urge to possession?
It's okay. Where is it?
It's in the first
Mental
sentence.
Okay.
illumination and the
Unless the race is to look again, he's saying the same thing. This race itself has to go there, otherwise somebody else will take over. So, unless therefore the race is to fall by the wayside and leave the victory to other and new creations of the eager travailing mother, it must aspire to this ascent, conducted indeed through love, mental illumination, and the vital urge to possession and self-giving. Okay, you must possess as well as give yourself. So, he says that there must be a giving of oneself but also possession of the others. There has to be a balance between the two.
Ah,
He has spoken of that earlier also. Even in the physical world, if you give yourself too much, too much of expense will be there, you will exhaust yourself. But you must also be able to take. There is always a balance between the two.
So give and take.
Yes, a give and take.
Paraspata.
Yeah.
in Savitri, he seems to feel, or he seems to be telling us, that the higher kind will lift up the lower kind,
Yes.
and all men will rise.
Yes.
But here he says, the race is to fall by
Yeah.
the wayside.
That's right.
And Mother said, I don't know if the present humanity is going to survive.
That's right. This he says in many other places also.
Many places.
I
But-
think the last chapter also he said something which was that either this
Yes.
rise to supermanhood or else the supermanhood has to come down, and we said it seems to be the same thing, you know. But if it does, that is the thing.
I would understand this in this way, that man as such would remain like a fixed species, like cats and dogs.
Mhm. Maybe so, yes, maybe
And
so.
a new race will come up which will take over the function
Out
of.
of this, like the apes, some of them became human beings, and
Yeah.
then the rest of the apes survived. So there will be one critical mass of people who would.
Yeah.
But in 72, Mother said, men, countries, continents, the choice is imperative.
Imperative.
Truth
Or
or
the
the
abyss.
abyss. And they wanted her to tone it down. I know, I heard this. He said, Mother, this is too strong for people. She didn't tone it down.
No?
And also she says that there has to be constant progress, because if you stop, then you're going down.
That's
There is
right.
no stopping. There is
Ah.
no
There's
stopping.
no stopping. No stopping.
Yeah, stoppage is not a choice. Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
because if you stop, then you have
It goes back.
start in the
Regression.
regression.
So, what's the next chapter? Let's see. The double soul in man. Okay. So, remember, he is discussing the vital. He's examining one by one all the concepts of Satchidananda. First, he discussed the Sat, that is a pure existent, the substance itself. It's a substance which is conscious. Then he comes to the Chit Shakti, that is the conscious soul. So, conscious soul becomes the vital here, the prana. So, he is examining now all the different aspects of the prana. Life and its problems, then the ascent of life. Now he is coming to the double soul in man. The double soul in man is the outer vital and the psychic being inside. It's often in the past, the emotional aspect of man was taken as his soul. So that's why Srimad is using the word the double soul. He means the vital being and the psychic inside.
There is this term he uses very often called the desire soul.
Yes, the desire soul is the outer vital. The outer vital and the inner vital. There is an inner vital also, and there is a higher vital also.
Correct.
So it's a complicated
And
thing.
pure vital.
Yeah. And he uses the word heart for higher vital.
Higher, not in the birth,
No, no.
but here,
Yeah.
within.
At the heart region
Because
and below the
emotionally-
navel. Below the navel is a lower vital which is full of all the wrong movements. This anger, jealousy, envy, lack of control, too much of possession, grabbingness, all these things are there in the lower vital. And the higher vital, good emotions, love, sympathy, generosity, and all these things at the heart level. But still, that's not the soul, but they are patriotism, love of country, love of humanity, so many other things. That's the higher vital. He calls it the heart. So he very often makes a distinction. He says mind, heart, and life. So by life he means the lower vital, which is below the navel or even at the navel level. But the heart is here at this level. And at the heart level, deep inside is the psychic being. That's a true vital, true. You can call it the Lord seated in the heart of death. That's the Lord seated. The psychic is the divine representative. Siddhartha also calls it sometimes the ambassador of the self.
It's a dynamic aspect, basically.
Yes, it is dynamic.
He also says in Savitri, she puts a small being no larger than the thumb
Yeah.
of man
Yeah, the
into a hidden
Angusta
region of the heart.
Yeah, that's in the Upanishads. He is quoting the
Oh,
Upanishads.
it's quoting the
Yeah.
Upanishads.
Yeah.
Angushta Matram.
Angushta Matra Purusha,
Ah,
yeah, which is no larger than the thumb of man. It's a way of saying it's a tiny thing seated deep inside you.
Ranga, thank you. It's very, very illuminating, and we are all appreciative. Thank you. Namaste.